Hello and welcome. This is Business Edge on News Central. I am Tolulakwe Adeleru Balogun. First, the headlines. Nigeria's Petroleum Industry Bill passes second reading in lower house. And across the continent, Ethiopia plans to sell 45% of Telkom's monopoly Ethio Telecom. When we wrap things up, we'll do that with NC4 to watch. Again, this is Business Edge. Welcome to the show. We start in the Horn of Africa, where Ethiopia has announced plans to sell a 45% stake in its Ethio Telecom monopoly. And this is coming from an advisor to the State Minister of Finance. This comes as the government pursues the liberalization of the sector despite an armed conflict in the north of the country. Ethiopia's telecoms industry is considered the big prize in a push to liberalize the African country's economy because of a huge protected market, which serves around 100 million people. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is attempting to energize underperforming state-run sectors with reforms. Now, according to a report, the Ethiopian government expects the sale to take 9 months, while it will also issue tenders for 2 new operating licenses in December. This is a process which is expected to take 3 to 4 months. Now, to discuss this, I have Raphael Malik. He's the head of operations for White Technology, as well as a facilitator in a WTS Digital Academy and a renewable energy specialist joining me. Raphael, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to Business Edge.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Now, investors have wanted access to Ethiopia for many years. For many, it has remained sort of like the last unconquered economy on the continent. It's been very protected for a while. What do you think is really pushing Ethiopia to finally open up? Is there any one thing, or maybe more than one thing, that you think is behind the liberalization agenda?
Well, I think first, the reform agenda from the Prime Minister is actually a good one. Bringing in reformations and probably business opportunity to develop the economy will be a very good reason to start, to bring in new licensed telecom industry to really change the scope of what is happening in that country. I understand that it's a very, very large populated country, next to Nigeria, and the vast opportunity for investors, investment is high. So the eyes of various investors has been on that particular country, but it has been controlled by the government till now. And I believe the reform that the Prime Minister is bringing in will open up a lot of opportunity for both the economy, the country, and the citizens as well.
So we have seen the Prime Minister in a number of things, also the banking and finance sector as well, in terms of trying to get Ethiopians in diaspora involved in banking and financial institutions back home in Ethiopia. But for this particular situation involving the telecommunications industry, who do we know the front runners are? Do we have an idea who the front runners are in a bid to expand telecommunications in Ethiopia?
Front runner, when you say front runner, are you looking at the potential investors? Or the people bidding? Because if from the information gathered, the EAC has a list of 12 telecom companies that have bidded for the open bid. I think 2 of them are non-telecom industry, okay, but major players have indicated their interest.
Okay. All
right. So among the list, the list goes on: the Vodafone, the Telecom, MTN, all of them listed on that list. But my concern is, what would be the criteria for the ECA to determine and to approve the license for the 2 licenses they are looking for? Because for me, there is need to look at their big brother. A big country like Nigeria, who has gone through this experience, and the fundamental experience that they've had should be a kind of key factor for them to look at, learn from, to be able to take proper decision when they are selecting those or the 2 telecom industry they are going to bring up. Because
sorry for interrupting you, do you think 2 is enough, given that we're seeing a protected market that hasn't had such activity in a very long time, and we're also looking at it being competitive and in the best interest of the people, 100 million Ethiopians? Do you think 2 is enough?
Well, I think I will look at it from the experience Nigeria had. We had about 2 at first, then others came in. All right. It's also good for 2 to come in at first, so that they could see how they will be able to manage the entire scope properly. All right. And gradually they can open more opportunity for more license. Okay. So coming in with 2 first will help them to build proper policies, proper strategy to be able to manage the entire telecom industry properly.
Okay, so everyone is aware that there is a humanitarian situation developing in Ethiopia, given the conflict that's happening with the Tigray Liberation Army and the Ethiopian government. Do you think this will affect the process of sort of opening up the telecoms industry in any way? What effect do you think this may have?
If I may come in from this direction, I understand the government is also pending the bid for the license at the moment. All right, but in any way, whether there is crisis or not, for every time there is development and there's possible policy change and bringing in reforms, there will always be contentions. All right. So I'm looking at, yes, there are crises in that country, but nevertheless, it's not affecting the whole country, one. And secondly, while they are working on completing the entire process for the bid and bringing in the telecom, I believe the government will be able to resolve the crisis looming the northern part of the country. Okay, so there's no need for that to influence or to stop, okay, the bid process and bringing in those investors. It will take time. Both the crisis will be resolved with time, and while that is going on, this is also being processed.
So let's also look at what this could mean for the economy in Ethiopia. What do you think are the positives that will be derived from opening up the telecom sector, with Ethiopia selling 45% of its monopoly in Ethio Telecoms? What's the economic impact, in your opinion, from this liberalization drive, particularly for the telecoms sector?
Well, with today's technology, the telecom sector is actually affecting different area of our lifestyle. All right. So there is a huge impact that is possible that can affect the entire economy of that nation, especially for the telecom industry. I see the high potential of different development coming up. Looking at what happened in Nigeria, for example, the IT industry was highly influenced by the telecom industry. The advent of the telecom industry coming into Nigeria gave a huge boost to the IT industry. Let me bring in this analogy. I was once at the so-called computer village in Lagos when it started, before the telecom industry came in. It's a very lonely part and a very low level, patronage area until the advent of the telecom. Now that place is flooded with, customers all over. So that the coming of the telecom industry will definitely affect every area of the country. The IT industry, even the small and medium enterprise, the small SMEs will be affected. There will be growth in different areas, because I can imagine how engineers, software engineers in different areas will come in to be able to become distributors to most of these telecom industries.
Okay, so let's talk about the breakdown. Now, it is 40% to all interested bidders, and 5% will be dedicated to Ethiopians who want to invest. The 55% will actually remain with the government of Ethiopia. And as we said, that this should occur within the next 9 months, hopefully, then that's what officials are saying. So the government still holds 55% of a stake, a monopoly, as it still is inside the Ethio Telecoms. So is this anything that might make investors worry or weary that government still has such a large hold on the company?
Well, to an extent, I would like to judge the performance of the telecom industry in relative to the airline industry. if the government own platform is doing well, okay, there's that need to give them some level of chance, or so to say, that there's tendency that they might do well, all right? But the coming of 2 or more licensed companies will bring in competition, will bring in some level of, what will you call it, change in the entire sector. So this will actually drive and affect the entire package being offered to every customer. All right. So for both for the investor and the government itself, there will be some catalysts that will come in that will actually change the entire face of the telecom. The government will definitely be challenged to up their game when the new licensee are doing better than what they are offering. Okay, so those are possible events that could come in, and that could actually change the scope of what is happening right now.
All right, so quickly, Raphael, before I let you go, there also has to be a conversation on policy fluctuation. There was confusion after some recent reports announced that the Ethiopian government had barred foreign companies from participating in the infrastructure side of the telecommunications sector. And this is something we see across the continent, unfortunately, policy fluctuation in different sectors that can bring FDI and investment. So in regards to this, how do you think Ethiopia's government under the Prime Minister should address this?
I think they should look at other countries that have done similar and learn from their experience in formulating their policies. Because if you take policies from a biased point of view, or probably you want to continue the monopoly of the entire sector, it will actually affect how much of development this can bring into the entire country. All right. So I'm hoping that they will have an open mind to what has happened, for example, in Nigeria, to be able to develop proper policy that will be favorable both for them and the investors. Okay, because eventually this will be it should be a positive influence to the entire economy and to the entire citizens.
All right, so we'll wrap the conversation there. Raphael Malik, thank you so much for joining me on Business Edge to take a look at some of the liberalization happening in the Ethiopian telecoms sector. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
And if this privatization is actually successful, it should lead to billions of dollars in investments in the sector, a rapid drop in prices, and competition that would deliver speedy internet and other services. So we'll be keeping our eyes on the developments regarding the telecom sector and other liberalization policies in Ethiopia. You're still watching Business Edge. When we return, we are back to the western part of the continent as Nigeria's Petroleum Industry Bill passes second reading in the lower house. We'll have the details after this. Now, the Petroleum Industry Bill, PIB, has passed second reading in Nigeria's House of Representatives. The lawmakers passed the widely anticipated bill upon the resumption of plenary. The revised legislation, which is an executive bill, among other things, seeks to scrap the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency. The bill was sponsored by House Leader Al-Hassan Doguwa, and controversies have trailed the bill for years following unsuccessive attempts to pass it into law. Now, moving the motion for the second reading of the PIB, the sponsor said that the bill, when passed, would create jobs and also address security challenges in the country. He said it would tackle kidnapping, banditry, and terrorism. Lending his voice to the debate, the minority leader Ndudi Elumelu said the passage of the bill was long overdue. He said the House would give it speedy consideration because green energy has made oil almost useless. Now, joining me to discuss this, I have business correspondent for News Central, Nasir Afolabi Agbalaya. Nasir, once again, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
So we've seen many alterations and many variations of the PIB. Then we heard that it was going to be broken into different pieces so that it would pass more easily. But now we are here. In the current one that you've seen that has passed second reading, what are the positives that you've seen from this bill?
Well, for the first time ever, this has clear guidelines on what to happen. And the principal thing here is that the breakdown, the unbundling of NNPC and PPPRA to the upstream and downstream, so that now there's clear clear-cut breakdown of what each firm would do. Now, before, this particular agency does this, and you find another agency do something similar to it.
Overlapping.
Exactly. Now, this now will stop, all things being equal. And if they truly implement it to the letter, you find out that each agency would do exactly what it is meant to do, not two agencies doing the same thing under a different guise. So now there should be more efficiency and, of course, more productivity.
We will cross our fingers. Now, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency will cease to exist, and new entities will take their place. It was just earlier this year that the NNPC released its first audited accounts in 43 years. And those reports released in 2020 were for 2018. And the audited financial statements also focused more on the subsidiaries of the NNPC group, as there was no consolidated financial statement. What are these new entities, and how effective do you think they'll be in replacing the NNPC and the PPPRA?
Well, now a particular entity will be in charge of the upstream sector, and one will be in charge of the downstream sector. Now, this means that somebody will regulate how mineral exploration is being done, so the royalties and everything will be under the purview of this particular firm. Now, when it comes to distribution and the rest, another firm will be in charge of that. So there'll be more monitoring and less wastage. Now, before, just like you read now, for more than 4 decades, there has been no real oversight. There's been oversight on paper, but when it comes to say how much came in, it's whatever they remitted. So this would have to stop with this. Now, exactly what came in from the royalties, from the joint partnership, this will be noted, and after every year, this will be audited. Unlike before, where the behemoth, the NNPC, has so much oversight that the minister really doesn't even respond to queries. And whenever the lawmakers invited them in the past, they just go for a court injunction or the other. Now, in this time around, this will be different. Everything is being spelled out. The minister just has oversight functions. Now, the parastatals under it, these new ones being formed now, will not just execute, but now they'll be more accountable than before. So with this, the hanky-panky that has been known to be the order of the day will not happen. And there will be more transparency, definitely more accountability also.
Okay, so let's look at the fact that it's taking this long for Nigeria to move the PIB into this stage. And the bill represents the most comprehensive review of the legal framework for the oil and gas sector in Nigeria since the industry began commercial operations in the 1960s. The Petroleum Industry Bill, which is an omnibus law, is meant to regulate the entire sphere of the industry and repeal most existing oil and gas legislations. A big question many have asked, and I'll put to you now, is why do you think it has taken Nigeria so long to address the issues within the oil and gas industry? Issues that have made NNPC not to be profitable, continuing to bring in loss after loss while the government continues to fund it. Nigeria has 4 refineries to date, no production. So why has it taken this long for us to address the issues?
The reality is people are making money from this. We cannot sugarcoat it in any way whatsoever. NNPC is a money-making agency. It has been generating revenue, but not everything has been accounted for. Not everything has ended up with the Republic of Nigeria, the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Not everything has been reutilized by Nigerians. NNPC brings in fuel, and we have refineries here. None of them are working. There's enough turnover maintenance, and yet not a liter, what am I saying? Not a drop of oil has been refined. Now, oil is not coming in. Of course, the byproduct, Nigeria is losing it also. We are buying what we are selling, the raw material. It's senseless.
It's mind-boggling.
Entirely. And now, yesterday now, the president launched a modular refinery. Imagine, it was commissioned 2 years ago. 5,000 liter will be produced from this modular refinery in Imo State. Now, if a private refinery could be commissioned 2 years ago and built, why can't the federal government build refineries in Nigeria to refine this product?
I think there are a lot of questions that remain with the PIB, and that is something we'll continue to discuss. It has passed second reading in Nigeria's House of Representatives, and we'll look forward to having more conversation on that. Nasir, thank you so much as always for joining me.
Great to be here.
All right, we'll be wrapping things up with NC4 to watch, and we start in, let's get a drum roll going. We start in Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari said that the establishment of modular refineries in the country will make petroleum products available to Nigerians and eliminate importation. There is a 5,000 barrels per day Walter Smith modular refinery now in Imo State, southeast Nigeria, as well as the groundbreaking ceremony for the Phase 2 works to expand the capacity of that refinery to 50,000 barrels per day. Moving to the southern part of the continent, SA to pay 500 million rand to global vaccine scheme. Now, South Africa has taken a decision to make a 500 million rand payment to the COVID-19 vaccine distribution scheme co-led by the World Health Organization. This was announced by the Finance Ministry. In Kenya, the country seeks $2.3 billion loan from IMF to aid economic recovery. The government is seeking a loan of as much as $2.3 billion from the International Monetary Fund under the lender's extended fund facility. The East African country hopes for an initial disbursement of about $725 million to fund the fiscal year that runs through June. And finally, on NC4 to watch, agriculture, not tourism or oil, is key to economic recovery in the continent. African countries that heavily depend on the tourism industry face a difficult recovery period after COVID-19, which continues to wreak havoc on global economies. Economists at the International Monetary Fund and Renaissance Capital are projecting that countries with sizable agricultural sectors and low exposure to tourism will recover quicker from the economic crisis fueled by the pandemic. And that's it on this edition of Business Edge. As always, thank you so much for joining us. You can head to our website and, of course, follow us on social media platforms for more business and financial news from here on the continent. Until next time, I'm Tolu Lokwe Adileru Balogun.